Hi, it's Martin. How are you? Remember this, on the 7th of July in Pennsylvania, charging 5 more men allocated over sexual abuse. Doesn't it get worse and worse?
Of those 14 that we previously arrested, all of them are pending trial, and their cases are at different points in the criminal justice system, but for one individual who took his own life when our agents were attempting to apprehend him.
Now, we already know this is news, but in the Jehovah's Witness circles, this is not on jw.org. This is not what they're showing on jw.org. This is fake news. But from the 90s to the 80s, from the time of when Barbara Anderson was in the Bethel and found out regarding child abuse and brought that out, and Silence of the Lambs ex-elder was bringing out these complaints about child abuse, it just gets worse and worse.
As I have said before, the details of these cases that I will be talking about are incredibly disturbing. The 5 defendants that we have charged today were all adults in positions of trust with these victims. And they violated that trust and they abused these children. Children are some of our most vulnerable members of society.
Jehovah's Witnesses, do you care about children? Elders, do you really care about children? 2 weeks ago I was in the Kingdom Hall with the video about the children's video cartoon characters talking about if someone touches them to say don't. But it's like they're living on another planet. It's like everything in the organisation is great, but children need to be protected. That's the concern. And the watchtower does not do nothing about it. And it just makes me want to get my computer and throw it from frustration.
And they should be nurtured and protected. But instead of protecting these children, the defendants violated and abused them.
So they're not having a go. They're not having a go at the watchtower's beliefs and doctrines. They're talking about that children need to be nurtured and protected. Surely that's what the Bible story says, doesn't it? Surely that's what the Young People's Arse book should say. Surely that's what the Family Life book should say. Surely that's what all the Watchtower's directive of safeguarding children should say. Surely that should be what the Watchtower publication should say.
I can assure you that my office remains steadfast in the commitment to investigate, prosecute, and hold accountable individuals that prey on children.
So watch out, paedophiles in the organisation. You are going to be caught out and brought out, and that is what needs to happen, because this scumbag organisation won't do nothing about it. Remember, it wouldn't change the 2-witness wall when ex-Jehovah's Witnesses were demonstrating outside of Walk Hill 3-4 years ago. Didn't listen. So now it's getting worse and worse. And Jehovah's Witnesses, paedophiles, are getting their clemencies because this woman means business. Good on her.
And while these 5 cases have their own set of facts and circumstances and different victims, there are common factors. All 5 men had the trust of the victims and their families.
There you are, Jehovah's Witnesses and elders. You have the trust of children and the parents, but you still allow children to be sexually abused. You should resign as elders, because you're not looking after children and protecting them.
And all 5 men were members of the Jehovah's Witness congregation, and many of them gained access to their victims through this organization. These cases were presented to an investigative grand jury, and the grand jurors heard the evidence, they heard testimony, they considered and weighed it, and they made a recommendation to charge all 5 defendants. I'm going to go through the details now of each individual case. First, David Belosa, 62, of Philadelphia. It is alleged that this defendant sexually assaulted a young girl whom he had met through the Jehovah's Witnesses community when she was 4 years old and he was 35. He became close to the victim's family and his congregation after moving to the United States. The victim's family welcomed him. They even let him stay in their home. And that is how he got to know the victim. The victim became friendly with him. And one evening, she went down to the basement to visit with him. And when she did that, he took that opportunity to pull her onto his lap and sexually abuse her. Before she went up from the basement, he told her not to tell anyone. He's been charged with aggravated indecent assault, and corruption of minors. The second case, Earl William Hall, 50 years old, of Alden, Delaware County. Hall, who was 41 years old at the time, was an elder in the Jehovah's Witness congregation. Through his position of authority and trust, he became close with his victim, a 16-year-old girl. Paul would often give this young victim a ride to and from school. On numerous occasions, he inappropriately touched her without her consent. Paul has been charged with indecent assault and corruption of minors. The third case is Sean Sheffer, 45, of Butler County. In that case, the grand jurors heard testimony describing Sheffer's sexual assault of a young girl who was just 7 years old when the abuse started. He was 18 at the time. Sheffer had a familiar relationship with this victim and often was alone with her in her home without her parents' supervision. It was during these times that he repeatedly raped and assaulted this young girl. The victim testified that the defendant raped her 50 to 75 times until she was 12 years old. He has been charged with rape, involuntary deviant sexual intercourse, aggravated indecent assault, and corruptions of minors. The next case is Terry Booth, 57 years old, of Panama City, Florida. Through a Jehovah's Witness congregation in Allegheny County, Booth became a mentor to a 16-year-old boy who ultimately turned out to be his victim. Through this mentorship, he spent extended periods of time alone with the boy, during which time he groomed his victim. He was 44 at the time, and he was engaging this victim in inappropriate sexual conversations, and it on at least one occasion, that conduct escalated into inappropriate touching without the victim's consent. Booth is charged with indecent assault and corruption of minors. Finally, Luis Ala Velezda, 55, of Reading. He abused a young family member of his for several years, beginning when she was 12 years old and he was 34. The grand jury heard testimony from the victim, who stated that for years he would sneak into her bedroom while she was sleeping and sexually assault her. Years later, when the victim was an adult, he raped her again in his home. He has been charged with rape, involuntary deviant sexual intercourse, aggravated indecent assault, endangering the welfare of children, and corruption of minors. I have to say that I am thankful to the courageous survivors involved in these cases who were willing to share the horrific abuse that they went through. I'm inspired by their strength. Many of these incidents and offenses happened a long time ago, even decades ago. But as a long-time child abuse prosecutor, I can tell you that the trauma endures for these victims. And for these survivors to have the courage and the willingness to pursue justice against their abusers is truly brave and remarkable.
So, Jehovah's Witnesses, this shows that this is not fake news. This has been going on and on and on because elders hide it and don't tell people in the kingdom halls. The bravery of these people that have come forward, and the bravery of this prosecutor to prosecute, and obviously the watchtower will say that they safeguard children when that is an apostate lie, a watchtower lie, and apostates are actually telling the truth for a change over this. So we will fight to make sure that child abuse is taken out of the watchtower. Hope you're listening, watchtower, because I'm going to get on your nerves over this, and I'm going to go on and on about it until